this constant contact between the armies. I mean, they're fighting at the Wilderness for about 2 days before they move on, but at Spotsylvania Courthouse, it's more like 2 weeks. And we have these sort of high points that we talk about, like the fighting at the Bloody Angle or Upton's attack or the attack on May 18th. But in between, you have armies that are digging in, that are building extensive earthworks. And those lines are changing, which means that every time the lines change as the result of an attack, it's time to dig in again. And you've got to re-strategize your earthworks. And so everywhere you see, or everywhere you look, you're going to see some traces of the armies or some little bit of a side action or something like that that you maybe didn't know about before. And really, at Spotsylvania, I often see that in the form of the earthworks because they are everywhere, and they are something that the soldiers have sort of directly left to us.
I was just going to say to you, because I was out there a few weeks ago, and I don't know if it was the time of day and with no leaves on the trees and just the way the sun was, but in walking through the woods and then seeing a couple of other spots, I just noticed earthworks were just so pronounced more than I even remember seeing them. The earthworks there are really something. And just to imagine that, I mean, we still are so fortunate that 160 years later, they're still visible.
Oh, yeah. No, and everywhere you walk, you can just picture, hey, every inch of this dirt is another inch of a soldier that's going to be safe. And that is how I look at every one of them of like, yes, this is the product of both engineering and desperation all put together, on this front. And yes, we have, I want to say it's something like 14 plus miles of earthworks down at Spotsylvania as a result of that. And they go everywhere.
So what a great way to describe it, though, I never even thought of that as far as protection goes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's why you see, earlier in the war, you see these debates about whether earthworks are effective or officers concerned that earthworks ruin a good soldier because they won't leave the earthworks and make an attack. But by 1864, I'm sure there are people who are still having that debate. But for the soldiers, it's just pretty point blank of anytime we stop, we're digging in because that gives me something to hold on to and that gives us cover. And that is what we need right now is a defensible position that provides cover. And no one is arguing with them. The main argument is how do we lay it out effectively and in the most strategic engineering kind of way.
And I always think, because I remember years ago, Eric Mink and I had the conversation that he just said, erosion does take place, trees falling on them and things like that, and they're not always going to be here, but we're fortunate to have them now.
Yeah, and we do everything we can to try to protect them and prevent erosion. And yeah, I mean, it depends on where you're at, right? Like you can find some tucked away spots in Spotsylvania where you can still pretty much, not that you can, don't walk on the earthworks.
I was going to say,
but you could
don't
stand behind them and fight from them if you needed to. We also hope that doesn't happen. But, where they're still tall enough, but then there's other places where, they've eroded away, or like right at the Bloody Angle, you see them really shallow because there are reports of basically seeing so many bodies in the earthworks that they just tip the works over and bury people there where they're at on the field, which is a testament to, again, kind of circling us back to the horrific fighting that we see in 1864, the mass numbers of casualties and losses, to where what's the best way to give folks a burial might just be to tip over the earthworks on them.
That's like you say, it's the bloodiness and just the what happened in this war, and that's one of the great things about being able to walk on the battlefield and read the signs and to realize, and sometimes just stop there and look at it, and you just, when you're there, it's very peaceful and quiet.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always like that.
Yeah, it almost belies what actually happened in these places.